earlier in the show, we were talking about Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers. We wouldn't be talking about this if the Jets just lost to the Rams and then they wouldn't have beaten the Browns. It's just pathetic.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sports with Thompson and Bean. I'm Aiden, and this is my co-host, Isaac. Today, we'll be covering an array of topics, but first, we're going to start with the NFL. As all of you know, Isaac is a Jets fan, and he's had bad quarterback luck throughout his tenure as a Jets fan.
Extremely bad quarterback luck, Aiden. It's not even like there's no feasible way of putting it. Like, it's the worst quarterback play in the NFL. I mean, it's not even debatable. Like, the Jets were so good last year. We finished 7-10, and we had Zach Wilson. If we had anyone but him, we probably win 10-7 in the playoffs. Like, you know.
Still probably would have lost in the first round. But
I mean, we beat Buffalo with Zach Wilson. Imagine what we could have did without him.
Without Zach Wilson? All right, let's stop talking about the bad quarterbacks, and let's talk about the good. There's rumors that you guys might get Derek Carr and or Aaron Rodgers. How do you feel about both of those quarterbacks, and which one would you prefer?
Well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, obviously a two-time MVP, or actually four-time MVP, 2 times in the last 3 seasons. He would be the best quarterback the Jets have ever had. I mean,
no doubt.
But is history going to repeat itself? I mean, we did the same thing with Brett Favre. Like, how did that work out with us in 2008? Like that.
Not very good.
I mean, 8-3 start off, and then he tore rotator cuff, and next thing you know, he's in Minnesota. I mean, he's more Brett Favre of his time was more notorious for him, you know, sending inappropriate pictures to an intern than it was actually playing quarterback for the Jets. Like him and his Wrangler jeans. I mean, now we're gonna have Rodgers and his, you know, political garbage,
with his,
bad takes.
Little undercut that he's got rocking now.
Wannabe John Wick look. I mean, he looks like John Wick, and you know he went into darkness. I mean, who goes into darkness, Aiden?
Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers, yeah. So it's like he's gonna be going into extremely darkness when he loses in New York and he's on the back page of the New York Post and the New York Times. Like, hey, we don't want that drama. I mean, Derek Carr. I mean, he's 31, turning 32. I mean, he's played with the most dysfunctional organization probably
throughout the last
couple of years. I mean, he's been on 5 head coaches. He made the playoffs with Rich Bisaccia as the head coach. Rich Bisaccia.
Yeah.
I mean,
an interim head coach at that.
Yeah,
actually,
and this was
got fired.
This was after Henry Ruggs went and killed someone doing speeding. We had John Gruden getting, you know, hit with stupid emails.
Racial allegations. Let's just say that. John Gruden's not a very good person.
Yeah.
We won't talk about him much.
And Derek Carr still willed his team to the playoffs that year. I mean, you can argue, you know, he's only been to the playoffs twice, and one of the games he didn't even play in. But that year, he was going to win the MVP, and he got hurt.
He was on track to win the MVP that year.
And I don't see how you could say Derek Carr would be a bad option for the New York Jets. Like, I think if Derek Carr was on the Jets last year, they're winning 11 games. I think this year, with our defense, with Breece Hall coming back, with Elijah Vera Tucker coming back, I mean, maybe we're going to lose other players, but I think the Jets have a real shot with Derek Carr. I really do. Derek Carr's the guy I want. I think he will give us 100% effort. He's a team-first guy, and I think the best football is in front of him, really.
I hope so. One of their pitches is, don't know the reporter, but they said if Derek Carr comes to New York, he'll be a future Hall of Famer. If he wins, it's potential. But, so you want Derek Carr, we'll get to that. Well, we've already covered that, so Derek Carr's pretty good. So now let's talk about the new head coaches. Sean Payton is now the head coach of the Denver Broncos. In my opinion, I hope it doesn't turn out like Nathaniel Hackett. I don't think it will. Payton's a Super Bowl winning coach. He's coached one of the greatest and most underrated quarterbacks of this generation in Drew Brees. I think he brings a lot to the table. He's also a very good defensive mind. Payton's going to be a real force to be reckoned with, I hope. And on the topic of the Broncos, what about former Rex Ryan, former Jets man? How do you feel about him potentially coming out of being a broadcast analyst and back into the defensive coordinator of the Broncos? I think he loses a little bit of touch, but it's not hard to come back and be a DC, I don't think. I'm not a DC by all means, but in general.
See, I was a big Rex Ryan guy. He was my hero growing up. I mean, the sexy Rexy chants, like, you know, watching Hard Knocks when I was younger, and you hear like the crowd chanting sexy Rexy. I mean, he was my guy. Like, we didn't have a face of the franchise, but our face of the franchise was Rex Ryan. Rex Ryan and Darrelle Revis. Rex Ryan, I mean, his defenses, they're great up until the fourth quarter. They tend to give up, like they
fizzle out in a way.
Not really. They play really great, and then when they need one stop to win the game, they'll give up a drive. Just like I remember in 2009, I thought the season was over when, everybody and their mother knows the Falcons are going to Tony Gonzalez on the
no matter
to,
what,
to
yeah,
win, and
throwing to
gave
one
him
of the
the
greatest tight ends of all
touchdown.
time.
It looked like the Jets season was over. He even said it in a press conference, and they ended up making the playoffs somehow with like way below odds. So he definitely was the best coach in my lifetime as a Jets.
Yeah.
As a defensive coordinator, he was fantastic with the Ravens. He knows how to coach defense. I think it's a rally hire. I think Sean Payton's really putting together a great coaching staff in Denver. Now, is Denver going to be that team that fizzles out like they were last year? I mean, they were a lot of hyped.
Potentially.
They were a lot of hyped. I mean, they were one of the most hyped up teams. People were saying they were going to win the West, and they weren't even close. I mean, they were one of the worst teams in football. Russell Wilson is not great.
Now.
But I think if anyone can fix Russell Wilson, it's Sean Payton. And it's funny that we're saying we have to fix Russell Wilson, which is weird because normally when you say you want to fix a quarterback, it's a rookie quarterback, not a quarterback who's
won a Super Bowl before and
won a Super Bowl, who's been
have
how many Pro Bowls? Like 9. I mean, it's just weird. It's just weird to think about, and I think they can be a team, but they're always that team that everyone's like, oh, they have that great defense. They just needed some coaching. They needed that last year. They needed a quarterback.
That's what it's always been with the Broncos.
So they haven't made the playoffs since they won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. So is this the year they finally snap? I mean, I don't know if they snap that streak. I mean,
it's potential, but
the AFC
West
is loaded.
pretty. The AFC West in general is loaded.
Yeah.
You have the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, and
the Raiders. Raiders are not a good
Raiders
team.
are not loaded,
No,
but
they're not loaded.
they're set up for success. They have they have Devontae Adams and they have Darren Waller, great pieces. Back to coaching. DeMeco Ryans left the San Francisco 49ers and is now the head coach of the Houston Texans. Had an all-pro career with them as a middle linebacker, right? Or a linebacker?
He was a middle linebacker, yes. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler. He won Rookie of the Year.
Isaac knows his stuff.
And he was definitely a leader. He was a captain of the Texans before leaving. And if you heard what J.J. Watt had to say, he had to say that he was one of the best leaders he's ever been around. DeMeco Ryans, I mean, he's a good player. I mean, there's no debating that. I mean, he was a good player. Now he took over Robert Saleh. I mean, Robert Saleh is now the head coach of my New York Jets, but San Francisco 49ers defense coordinator. He picked off right when Robert Saleh left off. And it seems like the San Francisco defensive coordinators have a pretty good gig because
no matter what,
they got great. So they got great.
Mike McDaniels too. He wasn't the DC. He was the OC. Now he's the head coach of the Dolphins.
Kyle Shanahan. I mean,
and Shanahan
it's
too.
like Shanahan's just
the 49ers breed.
They breed head coaches. I mean, it's just there's no way of putting it. Like
nope.
And I mean, you look at that tree all alone, like all together, like the Mike Shanahan tree, not just the Kyle Shanahan tree,
the whole
Mike
Shanahan tree
with Mike LaFleur, Mike McDaniel,
everything.
Sean McVay. I mean, you see all these premier offensive coordinators. Now you're seeing defensive coordinators come from it. You're seeing Saleh, seeing DeMeco Ryans. I think DeMeco Ryans was the right man for the Texans. I really do. I mean, he was drafted there, played well there. Coached well in Fort. He was definitely deserving of a head coaching job.
Yeah.
And
throughout his whole career there, tenure, I should say.
I mean, he was a great linebackers coach beforehand. I mean,
he's been up there.
He's come through the ranks, and I think it makes sense for the Texans. I mean, you can make an argument that this is their third head coach in 3 seasons, but this feels like they finally got their guy. I mean, it feels like David Culley was a stopgap guy. Lovie Smith was a stopgap guy. I feel like they were never.
The Texans are. I think they're better off with DeMeco.
Oh, 100%.
Just in general, he's been in the organization. He knows how they play. He knows what they want to do. But it's going to be a great hire. Another interesting hire, one that kind of shocked me, because Eric Bieniemy has been in a bunch of talks throughout his tenure with the Chiefs. They've won the 4 Super Bowls in the last 5 seasons. He is now the new offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. I think it's going to be great for him. Or the assistant coach, OC assistant coach. He's either or.
Coordinator.
He's going to be able to hopefully make the play calls and show that he can call plays, because I think that's the biggest thing that stopped other teams from trying to hire him as a head coach, because he never really called many plays with the Chiefs. It was all Andy Reid and everything like that.
I mean, if you want to look over it, I mean, he's been interviewed by almost half the teams in the league. Probably
doesn't interview well, is what I've read and what I've heard.
He does have legal issues. Like, there are legal concerns. I mean, he doesn't call the plays per se. No. I mean, you hear LaShawn McCoy ripping him. I mean, mean,
and then Jamal Charles came back
Yeah.
and backed them up. It's
So
all
it's
preference, I
conflicting.
believe, with how they deal
I
with
think
their
so.
players and
I
coordinators.
think so. So let's see how he does calling the plays. If he comes out and calls the plays, there's no way he shouldn't be the head coach
At
of
all.
the Commanders because
They
I mean
need to
Ron
have- they
Rivera's
need a
kind of
head
on the
coach.
hot seat to begin
Yeah,
with.
he's.
So I think this is a good. I think it's a good hire for the Commanders. I think it works for both parties involved.
I think so too. Now, aside from the hires, we have two major players. One that is going to be reinstated in Calvin Ridley, or he's applied for reinstatement, and then one in Lamar Jackson, who a lot of people say the Ravens are going to franchise tag him. And I think they should, because you don't let a quarterback like him walk away. Either franchise tag him or pay him the money. He's proven to be a winning quarterback with the Ravens. They've been to the playoffs. He's won an MVP. They haven't won the Super Bowl per se. Well, they haven't at all. But I think Lamar staying with the Ravens, is good for the organization. Is it good for Lamar? I think so too. I would like to see him flourish somewhere else. Don't know if it'll happen. But I think the Ravens need to make their number one priority keeping Lamar and paying
Yes,
him.
it's without a doubt. I mean, he's done a lot for that franchise. Won an MVP in 2019. I mean, it's just makes a lot of sense for him to stay in Baltimore. But is the bridge
Burned? I don't know if the bridge is burned. I think it was hurt a little bit when they decided to trade Marquise Brown to the Cardinals for was it a first-round pick that they used to draft somebody. But aside from quarterback play, Calvin Ridley was suspended for the entire season last year, and he missed all of the previous season due to mental health issues. He was suspended for 18 games, I believe without pay, for gambling on the games. He gambled on the Falcons, people. He gambled on his own team to win. Now, we all know the Falcons. The Falcons are not great at all. But he bet on them to win. But then you look at Deshaun Watson, who has all of his sexual allegations, 23. He got
It's
11
probably
games.
more than that now. I mean,
23, whatever, in the 20s. He got suspended for 11 games. Ridley got suspended for the whole season for betting. I know betting is in the rules that you can't do it.
Yeah.
He bet on his team to win.
So there's actually a funny story. So this is kind of off topic. Sorry, but Miles Austin, the Jets receivers coach.
Yep.
He's suspended too because he bet on table games.
Oh, didn't know that.
So I think betting is against just prohibited.
Betting is prohibited in general, but you look at it from Deshaun Watson sexual allegations, 11-game suspension. Calvin Ridley spent $1,500, which is a literal dollar to him with all that money.
No.
I think there needs to be a line with everything, but
Good news is he's coming back next year. So
I would hope so. He did apply for reinstatement. I'm assuming the league
they're going to reinstate him probably.
reinstates him.
And I think
Ooh,
it's
to a stacked Jaguar team
I
already.
think it's a great fit for him in Jacksonville. He'll obviously be the number one. You'll have Kirk. You'll have Zay Jones. You'll have,
Travis Etienne. Trevor Lawrence is doing well.
Trevor Lawrence is obviously a star in the making. If they bring back Evan Ingram, then you're looking at
they
one.
only signed him to a
You're
one-year
looking
deal.
at probably one of the favorites for the AFC. Them with the Chiefs, I think the Jaguars are definitely up there. Because
I would think so too. Just by them adding,
and
they were 9-7 last season,
It
right?
pains my heart because Trevor Lawrence should be a New York Jet. That's not even debatable. Like,
He should have
just
been.
like now, like earlier in the show, we were talking about Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers. We wouldn't be talking about this if the Jets just lost to the Rams and then they wouldn't have beaten the Browns. It's just pathetic. So now we have to watch the Jacksonville Jaguars flourish, and the Jets are still in the offseason where they're trying to win the offseason. They can never win games in the regular season. They have to win the offseason. So good for the Jaguars, good for their fans. They tanked right. They got the right coach. Everyone said it's a retread. No, he won a Super Bowl.
He
He's
won
a
a Super Bowl with
fantastic
the
coach.
Eagles. Great
They got
coach.
it right. They absolutely got it right.
They did. Now, stepping away from the Jaguars, Isaac seems to be getting a little angry with talking about Trevor Lawrence and that. But on the other topic of NFL and football in general, the XFL kicked off last weekend, and a lot of great football was played. You have Josh Gordon, who's on the Seattle Sea Dragons, Martavis Bryant, who's on the Renegades, I believe. Two big wide receiver names. They brought a lot of rules into it, one of them being the new kickoff rule, where you have to kick off and you have to wait until the kick returner catches the football for both teams to charge. I think that's a great rule. It creates a lot of safety in the league and prevents those unwanted high-speed, fast collisions that can result in injury.
And injuries and serious injuries at that.
No matter what. Now, another rule that was changed is the 1, 2, and 3-point conversions. So after a touchdown, you have the option of going for a 1-point conversion on the 5-yard line, I believe, a 2-point conversion from the 10-yard line coming out of the red zone, and 3-point conversion from the 15 or the 20. And I think that's a solid rule, but it takes away from having kickers, which in a way the kickers are very important. If you miss a kick, you miss a kick. But it creates a more fun feel to the game, more arcade-like feel, I would say.
I think it needs to stay in the XFL and not in the NFL. Make the XFL the alternative. Make the NFL the authentic. Like, XFL is about, they want to get ratings. They want to be like a big-time, do their different rules. That doesn't mean the NFL has to adapt the rules, in my opinion. The 3-point conversion, it's a fun rule.
Yeah, I don't see that one being in the NFL.
It's a good,
only the kickoff one,
It's
maybe.
a good rule for the XFL because it makes it exciting. They want high-scoring games. They're never going to be the NFL.
No.
So the NFL adapting rule changes from a different league is kind of like, I don't know. But I think the XFL is doing a good job marketing themselves to be different, to be the alternative, and not only be the alternative, be a gateway for players to have another opportunity to make money. Because
get back into the NFL, even if
get back in the NFL.
Out.
Because let's be real, an NFL player's dream, if they're one injury away from, and they don't really have a backup plan. They're not getting.
Not at all.
In college, let's be real, they're coasting through those college classes. They're putting them through little
small easy classes,
and then they're getting tutors. They probably don't even do most of their homework. They get a lot of extensions. So they don't have the internships or the actual. So it's tough for NFL players to make it in the real world.
Yeah. Look at Josh Gordon and Martavis Bryant. Yes. They got suspended for all their stuff.
Gives these players another opportunity to prove themselves and make some money because that's all about this world is making money, and that's what players need to do. That's
a very interesting opening weekend per se, I should say, for them. A lot of the games were low scoring in the beginning. I think they're all getting with their new offense. But the XFL as a whole, like Isaac said, is a great alternative to the NFL. And I would hope that, I know you don't want them to adopt any rule changes. I don't think the NFL will, but the only one I think they should consider is the kickoff one. It creates a safer kickoff than everything.
Yep.
And on that note, we now wrap up this episode of Sports with Thompson and Bean. Thank you all, and remember to always stay beanie. Have a great rest of your night.